All right, so this is called the Afterburn. I hope that was a blessing. I hope you appreciated the teaching. It was useful to you. All right, so if you have a comment or question, you're able to, and you're here, you're welcome to come up to the mic and get in line to come up to the mic. If you're on live stream, we've got Kurt and Gary. You got the Shamish team over there. I'm sure we got Rob online, so give them your attention and go ahead and start typing in your comments or questions, and Kurt will go ahead and select a few out to read. Okay, we're going to begin with Justin.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
So I have a question here in 1 John at the end, kind of a question about the fellowship. So I know that this love and Torah is it's vertical and horizontal within each other. He wants a community of people that can live with him together. So fellowship is a major part of this, as in if we isolate ourselves, don't put ourselves out there, kind of become a recluse, it does us no advantage. We can still say we're being kind, we're doing these things, trying to walk out the word, but unless we're putting ourselves with others to be tested and tried, it does us no good. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. All right, so now you caused me to have to do a little mini sermon, which has been needed, but you gave me the excuse to do it. All right. Let me think how I want to say this. Okay, some of you do a fairly good job of making people feel welcome and loving each other and fellowship and that kind of thing. Not the majority necessarily. Okay. We're not the warmest congregation on the planet. Then again, there may be those out there that are colder, and I noticed. I'd say that we don't have cliques here or cliques here, but we do, but we don't. To me, a clique is more like groups of people that meet all the time and kind of isolate themselves a little bit, and they don't welcome new people in. We have half of that. We've got people that always like to be in that small little groups together, so we have 5 or 6 of them always hanging out after services, that kind of thing. But they do tend to be welcoming to other people to join in, so it's not the way I would normally think of it. Problem is that very few of you are doing a whole lot to welcome actively someone. Go seek people to bring into the little group that you hang out with and welcome them in. Go seek people, especially new people, and notice if they have anybody that they're talking to. Seek after and bring and invite people to come sit with you that are new so they can meet your little group that already has a great time together. Because we're not very good at this. I'm not saying all of you. Some of you do it, and that's fine. I'm just saying as a general, more than 50% score, okay? So more than half of you are not doing that great a job with this. And so I think that makes it hard, because we've got people that move their whole lives here only to not really feel that welcome because they don't know how to, sort of find the rhythm to jump into these different groups. Now, let me flip the coin the other side. All you new people, just walk into these groups and start hanging out. They will welcome you in. I'm not putting it all on them. Some of it has to be on you. If you see a group that looks like you might want to be a part of it and hang out with those people, well, just walk over and just stand there and watch and pay attention, and then eventually you start contributing. And everybody here, from what I've seen, has been very welcoming. I've not seen a single bunch that doesn't, kind of pushes people away. But you may need to, if they're not so good at this yet, again, this is like adjusting to each other, like we talk about husbands and wives. So if they're not adjusting, then you adjust. This is supposed to be your family. Walk over and sit down with some people. All right? I've seen people be very successful because that's exactly what they do. As soon as they got here, they just walked over and stood around groups of people that looked like they were fun and wanted to hang out with. And next thing you know, they're involved in hanging out with them. Or you may realize, I don't match with this group as much as a different group, because everything is personalities too. And eventually you find the people that you match up with the best, and those are the ones you spend most of your time with. But don't forget the other people, especially new ones, who may be a good fit for your group. Maybe they won't. Because we tend to group with people that we're most like and have most in common with, etc. And that's fine. But we don't want to leave a few people out there thinking, but nobody really matches with me, or welcoming them in. We should be loving on everybody the same. And we're not very good at this, okay? And some of you are thinking, well, it just feels a certain way, but you know what? Are you making the effort? And maybe you are, okay? But ask yourself, are you making the effort? Do you walk over by groups? Do you stay after services when they all go out and eat? Do you go out with them? You don't have to spend any money and eat, just go and sit. I mean, This group does a lot of social things, and we end up at restaurants a lot. Some places think we're a little crazy because we go to restaurants Saturday night after we just ate. But we ate 4 hours earlier. We go out for those of you that, some of you think, but I can't stay up that late. Well, if you want the fellowship, so every now and then you may need to stay up a little later. That's when these things are happening. Because we have our own egg at about 5:30, 6 o'clock, right? We eat. Tonight we're going to eat. And then about 9 o'clock, people are hungry again, or 10 o'clock, and they sometimes go out to a place that's open around 10 o'clock. And so 15, 20, or 30 of you will go out and eat. And that's where a lot of the breaking bread fellowship stuff happens. But think about when you sit for the oneg, for the meal, when we sit after services, look for people to welcome to come sit with you. Go sit with new people. I sit by myself a lot just so I can get the eating done, and also because a lot of people, for whatever reason, just don't choose to come sit by me. They leave me in my space. But after I eat, I will always go and find the new people to make sure that I give them some attention and come and sit with them as best I can. Okay? And so now if I walk over to new people, they already seem like they're well engrossed in a really great conversation with other people, I might leave them alone other than just saying, hey, I just want to let you know you're welcome, and if you want to talk to me, that kind of thing. I like if they're already having a great time to leave them alone. Okay? Because some of them will end up happen to sit in a place where it just meshed really well, and that's great. But we're supposed to be building a forever community. And so let's do a better job of the loving from a way that actually the people feel it. Okay? You say, but I love all the people here. But do they feel it? And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And so let's just be more active and proactive on both sides. If you're new and you see that there's a lot of laughter and noise coming from one side of the room, maybe go over and sit over there and introduce yourself. I haven't seen any group yet that's not welcoming. And if I hear there is one, they're going to be in trouble with me. I just haven't seen that. All groups are welcoming. You just may not blend in with the particular group because it's a matching of personalities that tend to be in a group. And if you don't match, then find a group that does. Start your own. Find other people that you kind of sit and match up with, you know? And that's just an encouragement for that, because I know that it can be a challenge and you come here and you don't know everybody, and everybody else here knows each other a little better. But realize this, nobody in this room, well, I shouldn't say that. How many people in this room are here less than 3 years? Almost every hand went up, okay? How many people in this room are here less than 2 years? Still almost every hand. So everybody's kind of new. Less than 1 year. Still half the room. So don't think that these people are not as new as you are. Then they're only here a little bit longer than you, okay? They really have not been here that much longer, but a lot of them made the effort to go and somewhat impose themselves. Just go over and be with people. Go over and say, hey, is it okay? Can I sit down? Can I join you? And I'll be like, come on. They'll welcome you right in, and they'll just, just start laughing like the rest of them and having a great time, okay? Now, Billy mentioned during the prayer time that if you want time with me, it's a little bit more challenging. But it's simple, okay? Obviously, I do counseling times all throughout the week. As a matter of fact, it seems like that's all I do anymore. Well, I'm not complaining. It's so needed. But that seems like all day, he has my schedule. And people, in case you wonder, I don't send you to Billy to block or to screen. For the team to know when I'm available and not, I have to have one person holding the calendar that can help filter all that. That way it goes on my phone's calendar and it goes on their calendar, and they know I'm already booked for something, okay? That's why if you come to me, I'll send you to him to schedule. But also, as he said during the prayer time, if you go out to eat with me, I eat lunch every day. I eat dinner every day. As a matter of fact, on my phone for dinner it says, go home, Rabbi. Because I'll work right through dinner if I don't have that encouragement. He actually has dinner blocked, and he says, go home on my phone, okay? But I will have, and you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to take us out. We appreciate it if you do it. It's not the big deal. But if you want to go eat together, that's the time you get me, or you can get me and my wife, and we can sit and we can really get to know each other. And that's the ideal way to spend time, is to break bread and just to get to know each other. And so that's for even you people that have been here for a while, and you're like, well, how do I get some rabbi time? Tell Billy you want to go to lunch or to go out to eat sometime, and we'll put you on the schedule. And I'm happy to do that. And so when you look at me on the camera, this is for Jet, and you see that I'm still overweight, it's their fault, because they're taking me out to restaurants. Okay. Okay? I've eaten at restaurants more than I would care to eat at restaurants. But it is what it is, and it works out very nicely. So, I got to have a wonderful meal with a couple of people this week. Went out with the Myers, Ned and Jackie, went out with Tamima, and she got to know us. She came into town. So especially if you're out there and you're coming into town and you want to get some time, schedule time to go out and eat, okay? And when the whole group goes out after services, don't count on me being there, all right? I don't always go. I'm not a social person. I know that I seem very outgoing, and I am. I'm very extroverted. I don't have any blue, okay? So I don't do the social thing very well. But if you want to talk to me and get to know me and then talk about your stuff and let me do rabbi stuff, I could do that all day and all night, okay? And so, and if I fake you out, I apologize like I did last week. I told people I was going to go out on Saturday night, and I didn't end up going, all right? So I faked Billy out the first 2 times. So Shane's still 1 behind, right? All right, because I faked Shane out last week. Okay, so I will sometimes go, especially if Rebbitzin asks me, and I'll do it to please her, and I'll come, because she wants me to be there. But you have to understand, after a whole week and all day of all of this, and people, I just like to sit, get away and just do my own thing, for a little while. And so I don't always go out. So don't think that that's where you're going to get to talk to me. Although if you tell me that's what you want to do, I'll go just for that. I won't go for general social, but I'll certainly go if you want to, hey, when you go out, can I sit with you? I want to, I want to meet you, or my wife and I want to meet you, or whatever. I'll definitely do that, okay? Because then I'm doing rabbi stuff, and then I'm happy to go do that, okay? That's my most comfortable thing to do, okay? Just socializing, I don't know how to do that. So it doesn't work as good. All right, so I just wanted to throw that out there. I know that was a long little mini sermon but I think it was appropriate because I think you guys are incredible people. I mean, I've not had a congregation with as awesome a bunch of people as you guys. I genuinely think you're all different, unique, and interesting and cool in your own ways, but you have to find a way to interact with each other more and welcome each other in more so that you can love on each other more, because I enjoy all the time I spend with every one of you when I have had those times to spend. And I've watched you interact with each other. You guys are just, hysterical and fun and everything else. And you got great hearts, and you're caring, and you're generous, with your time and with helping each other. We just have to be more actively proactive looking for those opportunities. All right, next.
Okay. Let's see if we can talk about, you talked earlier, pride and humility. So pride is where we think we know better, so we don't tell me how to do it. What you want done, I'm going to do it the way I see best. And then humility is we ask how it's to be done, regardless of what we think should be done, to get it done correctly. So if you could help.
That would work. I wouldn't limit it to that, but that absolutely is included in those two definitions. That was very well said.
Okay, and then the other thing was satisfaction and gratification. So it would seem like if we are into immediate satisfaction, it's all about ourselves. And then if we do delayed gratification and we wait to have that, then as we change, then what would have gratified us in the beginning may not be the same.
Okay. All right, so in other words, if you delay your gratification, it may be that you don't even end up going in that same place later because you waited on it, and you'll have time to see that might not have been the best way to go anyway. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
And then finally, in 1 John, you said might have was, to me, the key, because that means we must do what's necessary in order to have, correct?
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Steve. Okay, who's next? Chris?
I have a question on James 5, verse 12, when it talks about swearing. So is that the same as making a promise? Because sometimes I'll make a promise, a promise, but I'll say something, and then something will come up, or there'll be a reason why I don't do it for someone or go somewhere for someone.
Right. So swearing is about making an oath or a promise or a commitment. He said, and so what he's saying is, look, if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say you're not, don't. He says, but the swearing part is when you then bring and involve a witness of the Almighty. You say, as Yahweh lives, I am going to do this. Now you've done something beyond just saying, hey, I'm going to do it. If you make a commitment, he says, make the effort to keep your commitments. However, things do happen sometimes and it doesn't work out. But you make every effort to keep your commitments. But when you swear, in other words, you're affirming on an authority look, Yahweh does this on a regular basis. He says, I will hold this as a witness against you, the stars in the heavens and the sun and the moon, and as long as they exist, this exists. So when you say, as Yahweh lives, which means it's going to be forever, I'm going to do this thing. Well, but if you don't and you swear like that, you put yourself in all kinds of problems because now you've made a vow. And a vow is different than just a commitment or a promise. It's something that you now involve the Almighty in, and now you risk yourself getting in trouble because now you've involved Him. Okay? So we still should only, Billy says this all the time. We have a lot of people that overcommit and underproduce. Okay? Don't overcommit. If you say you can handle something, handle it. If you say you're going to do it, do it. And do it in the time frame that you said you would do it. And do it in the quality you said you would do it and everything else. If you're really not sure, then tell somebody, this is what I'm hoping to accomplish. I'm not sure I'll get there, but I'm going to, it's different than committing to it. We got a lot of people say, oh no, I got this, I can handle it, and then they don't show up or it doesn't get done. And then you're like mad, and then you're frustrated, and they look at you like, what are you frustrated for? Well, because you committed, and then you didn't do it. And I relied on that. Overproduce. Do more than you say you were going to do, not less. You'll always look better that way in everybody's eyes, and you'll feel better because you'll feel like you did a good job and above and beyond. But see, the reason we overcommit is because we want to impress the other person. There's your pride and your ego. And we take too much on our plate. Some of you do that because you'll see somebody like me do it and you'll think you could do it too, and you can't. Everybody has different capacities. And then people will see me and tell me not to take things on my plate, and they don't realize, I said, but I can handle that. I wouldn't take it if I couldn't handle it. And if I didn't want it. And then they'll say to me, but you're going to burn out. I said, I know my capacity. I have more bandwidth than you think. Okay? I'm aware of my burnout level. Because I've been told this enough in my life to be paying attention to. I have an attention awareness to this. And you have to be aware of yours. And don't commit to something that you can't do or will overwhelm you or stress you to the point where you're going to drop everything. Know your bandwidth. And by the way, it's not elevating one above another because they have more bandwidth. So what? So somebody can handle more things than you can. What difference does it make? That's them and that's you. And you have things that you do better than them and they do things better than you. So what? Okay, you don't have to be like them. Okay? All right, as Billy's training to do what I do, and others are going to train to do what I do, there's an expectation information-wise to know what I do and certain structural things, but I don't expect them to have the capacity necessarily for certainly to work the hours I work, okay? And so there are times when I tease them and I say slackers because they're like taking time off or going home, and now they've already worked 60 hours or whatever, but I don't have a stop button. Okay? But I don't expect everybody necessarily to not have a stop button. And that doesn't make what I do right or wrong or better or worse. It's just different. Okay? And so when we make our vows and our commitments, be aware of the difference between a commitment and a vow. A vow, you've now invoked things like as Yahweh lives or as Yahweh is a witness. Now you've got a vow. Now we're dealing with the verses in the Torah that talk about when you make a vow and it could get you in trouble. Okay? All right. Next. Janet?
I appreciated many sermons. I was trying to get up and I didn't know when you were going to, but it was so good. Because we were talking about how we need to do the utmost or do as much as we can, thinking about the extra mile and all the different good things that we learn from self-development. But I just have a little testimony and then a question. When it says, subject yourself to Elohim, servants of the Most High, and submit to Him, and then if you ask Him to forgive you, He will lift you up. That exactly happened to me yesterday, and I was was not good. And at some point, my husband said, well, actually, that's not the way you should be doing the Sabbath. And he told me that twice. And then I stopped. And I'm like, yes, what are you doing? I shouldn't be doing that. So then immediately I just went to him and I asked him to forgive me and I asked my family to forgive me. And that was really cool because then after it was just perfect peace.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do this, the Sabbath, right?
Amen.
So that was really nice. I like how he tells us what to do, but we're so stubborn. But if we do it his way, he's going to honor his word, and he's going to do what he says he will do.
Right, and the hard part that you did, the hardest part, though, is that you had to be willing to own that what you were doing wasn't right. See, that's the humbleness. The peace didn't come just because you went through a process. It became because you owned it. You released, right? You released all of that, but it's my way and I'm right. No, but you released all that. Well, you said, no, I was wrong, and I repent, and I apologize. Oh, now I can have peace. Instead of fighting to defend what I'm doing and fighting against what was going on. Go ahead.
Yes. It also reminded me of the prodigal son, how, the father was ready to receive him back, but he had to go through that process. But my question, Rabbi, was about verse, I don't know where, okay, it's James chapter 4, but I think it's 13, 14, when it says, 15, instead of your saying, if the master desires, we shall live and do this or that. And then at some point you were saying that we need to make sure that what we're doing is aligned to.
Well, in other words, most things in life that you have choices of really are not Torah issues. Okay, but you always want to ask, is this going to interfere with something Abba is doing with you? Yes. Okay? All right? And that's really more the thing. Okay? Some of you are having a real issue with trying to make a decision to move here or not. Because after all, there are things that are going on where you are, where you live, and that you're going through, etc. And you like some of them. You've got goals and things that you set over there, and yet you have to decide: is that really what He wants you doing? And it may be that He does. I'm not saying He doesn't. Or does He want you putting that aside and whatever He's going to open up over here because He wants you over here? And that's what we're talking about in terms of aligning some of these things, okay? Especially when you're changing locations, changing careers, doing things. Just say, Abba, if this doesn't matter to you, fine. Because a lot of the choices you make, He's like, well, just do whatever you want. Because you could choose the level of life you want to live at, okay, quality of life, etc. But you may, more to the point, He may want you to be in a location where certain things are, where you can accomplish certain things. Like in my life, He didn't let me succeed beyond a certain point in all my different careers, even though I succeeded immensely at first, because if I had stayed successful in those, I never would be doing this. And so at some point I had to ask the question, well, why is it that these other things keep going sideways? And then I realized, because He wanted me doing this. And so these things have to play through. But it's asking the question. You might want to get counsel about it too. Hey, is this something that may be an issue for Abba or not? And so there are times when I've had to tell people, look, I'm sure He doesn't care about that particular decision. It's not an Abba-related thing. It's you. What do you want? And a lot of times I frustrate people because the first question I ask them, I know Billy always says, did you pray about it? I don't usually ask that first. I just assume you do or not. But I always ask, well, what do you want? That's my first question. What do you want? Well, I want what He wants. No. What do you want? Then we'll figure out if that lines up with what He wants. But I want to know, and you need to know what you want. And I keep getting people answering, whatever He wants. Now, that's just the Christian way of avoiding the question. Okay? That's a very Christian way of responding. Well, I just want what He wants. Well, I know you want what He wants. That's why you're asking the question. But what do you want? And then we'll see if what you want lines up with Him. Does that make more sense? You got to start off with what you want. I mean, all of this stuff that James is talking about is not a problem having your desires. You got to make sure your desires are not causing you a problem. There are good desires and appropriate desires, and maybe what you want is a good thing, and maybe what you want has nothing to do with Him, so it's your choice. Either way, it doesn't matter to Him. Like what brand of car you buy, or what color it is, or whatever. I'm sure He could care less. Okay? Because it's not an issue of his relationship with you. And whether you become, let's say you're thinking, I want to become a plumber or an electrician or a doctor or a lawyer, I don't think he probably cares about that either. What do you want to do? He may care about where you live because he may want you to be in fellowship or may want you to keep working with the fellowship you have where you are. And there's lots of different things that can come up. We've had people start a home fellowship even though they wanted to move here. Look, we'll take Gary, for example. Gary started off with a group in Ohio, but he always wanted to come here and then had to work through the whole process of eventually how to get here but not abandon the group there. And it worked out beautifully. Because by the time he actually got to move here, it was appropriate and perfect to elevate two other people to come into the role so that they could do their thing there. But a lot of the conversations I had with him was about where he should be and what did Abba want. And it also started with always, well, what do you want? Well, I want to be in Cleveland. Okay, let's see how that could work at some point. Let's see how those doors open or whether or not they do. Anyway, so go ahead.
So just to follow up with what you just said, see, my mom was always taught me to say, she used the word Abba, but God willing, we'll do this or we'll do that. There was a thing that I remember she always taught me. So that's a question, should we think in that way for every single decision in our lives is my first part of the question. And the other thing is, it's obviously important to seek counsel, but we can also seek counsel if, let's say, we have already, we know what we want, but we want to seek counsel on how to do it or how to do that in a way that is pleasing to him. Not just necessarily that is his will to do.
Yeah, look, I think that we have to just be careful on the use of that whole God willing thing, okay? In other words, if you get or don't get a job, he may have had nothing to do with that. Okay? Now, he allowed it, right? He either causes or allowed, but I'm saying he may not have caused you not to get the job. I've had a lot of people get jobs and said, oh, I was so blessed, Abba gave me this job, only for it to be a disaster 3 months later. Okay? So we have to be careful how much and when we involve him. It's more the idea that, like if you're saying, I'll see you at Sukkot, you might say, Yahweh willing, Abba willing, because maybe you don't make it to Sukkot, and that kind of thing. But these other things where it could go any which way, I'd be really careful of reading it into, well, Abba, the Father just closed all the doors. Maybe he didn't. Maybe they just closed. I mean, sometimes he does, but it's hard to know. And so let's be really careful that we're not just running in that direction always and assuming that he's doing all these things. Well, he must not want me to come to Cleveland because the doors haven't opened. Well, some people come even without doors open. Sometimes it's better to wait. It's not always able to know what he's doing with you. What's clear is doors are not open, and so then we have to decide what you should do with that. Well, usually wisdom is to wait for a door to open. Okay? But it may not be that the doors aren't open because he doesn't want you here. Or it could be that he doesn't want you here yet for a reason. We can't figure that out just, at the moment, and probably more 20/20 hindsight. You know what I'm saying? It'd be like I'm driving my car and then I left the house later than I intended to go wherever I was going, and then I hit terrible traffic because of the accident that I could have possibly been in had I left on time. Now, did Abba have anything to do with that? Maybe not. But you look back at it and you appreciate that whatever came up that stopped you from leaving on time. Now, I'm not talking about if it's my procrastination or other things. Maybe a phone call or some important thing came up, made me late, and that making me late saved my life. Who knows? But while it's happening, it's very hard to know why it's happening. And so let's be careful that we're not using that stuff too willy-nilly. Got to throw willy-nilly out there every now and then. Okay? All right. Kurt.
All right, first question. In James 5, verses 1 through 3, why is the rich corrupted and their garments are moth-eaten? What if we are rich but righteous in Yahweh, and we have huge amounts of money? Are all these things going to happen to me?
All right, so I purposely didn't discuss the first 6 verses, but I did mention that these things were not talking about actual physical wealth, okay? So it says, your riches have rotted and your garments have become moth-eaten. In other words, you think you're so righteous in your appearance and all these things, that these things have started to rot and become moth-eaten. It's a picture, it's a metaphor, it's not a literal. So it's not necessarily about physical wealth. James is not talking to a bunch of wealthy people, physically wealthy people, okay? Next.
Next question from Stephen was, anytime not seeking the Lord, examples, watching a movie or doing a hobby, considered self-seeking and worldly. The Bible doesn't really talk about downtime, so I've always wondered this.
No, look, you were created to enjoy this life, and there's a lot of things in this world that are pleasures that are appropriate to you. And some of the entertainment that's out there, not much, but some of it is appropriate and of quality that should be partaken of. And it's that downtime is not so much downtime. He doesn't want us to be, like ascetic hermits sitting in a cave only just praying and meditating on him 24/7, okay? But he wants us to be thinking about and aware of our relationship with him at all times. Hopefully that makes some sense. So yes, you're going to have some downtime. And part of that downtime is when we get to do Yahweh-like things, when we get to be creative. You do some things that are hobbies and maybe tinkering around the house, whatever. You get to do things, whether it's cooking or fixing something or making something or drawing or painting or music. You get to do some creating things, not just sitting and watching. But there's lots of things we do with our downtime. And those downtime things are part of who you are, what you are. And so enjoy the downtime things, but always be aware that you enjoy these things because he gave you that personality. You enjoy these things that you do because he gave you those gifts and talents. All right? And so nothing wrong with the downtime, and he's not expecting us to just only sit, study, and pray and talk about him 24/7. Okay? All right, next.
All right, next one. If in 1 John it says to confess our sins, but who can we confess to?
Okay, again, the confession, I did try to explain this, it's sharing of information with people that are trustworthy to share your information with. Okay? So don't worry about confess. I think it may be a bad translation of the Greek. It's the idea of sharing with someone, admitting that you are challenged with something and having somebody you can talk to about it. I'll give you an example. Okay? Let's say you struggle with pornography. That's something most people would never talk about, but you need to talk about it and get some counsel about it. So, but you're not just going to confess that to everybody. Hey, by the way, I watch porn. Okay? And worse, the person says, what website? No, okay. Hold on, let me write it down. Okay? But you find somebody who will not look at you like, ugh, shame, and look at you like some embarrassing, shameful, whatever, right? What's wrong with you? You want to go to someone who's going to be able to say, I'm your brother, I'm here for you, this is something you struggle with, and treat it just like if you said, I'm a drug addict, I'm an alcoholic, any kind of addiction, and be able to be there for you, but you have to have someone you can talk to about it. Okay, that's part of what we do in the leadership. Is like, if you anything in your life that you're struggling with, that you can go and confess that, okay? And go and talk to somebody who can love you, but also tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. But you can trust that they're doing it without mocking you, looking down on you, or judging you, and that kind of thing. So it's the sharing of information, not so much confessing. But you know what? If you're struggling with this in private, it's brutal. I don't know how anybody overcomes these things if they're doing it themselves. And you know you want to and need to share it. I wish there was somebody I could talk to, is what you're thinking. But I'm too embarrassed that they're going to look at me like, you do what? And that could be anything, by the way. I picked one obvious thing that most people wouldn't want to talk about, need to talk about, and need to get help about. But you'd have to have somebody you could share that with, that you could trust them to share that with. And that's what he's talking about, okay? Amen?
I got three similar ones. One is, do we allow our kids to hang out with the chaff, or due to non-denominational youth groups? And if you're invited to a fellowship and you know they're Christians, how do you address this? And the next one is, what should I do if we're unable to live in a community with like-minded people, but we live in a community of Gentiles? Can we not practice walking our horizontal relationship with them?
All right, look, I think you can be friendly with almost anybody, okay? You can be friendly, okay? And a lot of you have friendships with people that you had before you came into covenant. And you don't have to end those friendships. You may alter the nature of the relationship and maybe not spend as much time as you used to or do some of the things you used to do with them, okay? But I still have friends that are not in covenant, and I talk to them very rarely. And when we do, we catch up on life and do what friends do, you know, okay? But we don't do any of the other things that we might have done back in the days and whatever. Okay, it's like when you were single and you became married. You didn't necessarily lose all your friends from when you were single, but the relationship changed. Because now that you're married, you don't do a lot of things you did when you were single. So the nature of the relationship does get altered a little bit, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship. That's number one. One of the other questions had to do with fellowshipping or youth groups and that kind of thing. Look, I would not be spending that kind of intense time in places that also involve instruction. See, I'm not getting any instruction hanging out with my friends from back in the day. We're just friends. We talk about life. We talk, mostly what do you do with your friends? You talk about stuff that already happened that you remember from each other. You reminisce. Hey, remember that time when so-and-so, yeah, you know, okay? And so you have that kind of stuff in common, but I wouldn't go and spend time in worldly related, even Christian, I would consider the same thing, places where there's going to be instruction, youth groups and that kind of stuff, instruction in halakha. Now, it's not to say if you're part of a club like my daughter's going to a musical theater thing. Nobody's instructing on halakha there. They're doing musical theater. And so if your child is going to be part of a sports activity or some sort of other activity group, you know, that's fine. But if it's going to be a youth group where instruction will be there, trying to raise them a certain way, all right, which is part of the reason why most of you homeschool, so that the public school system isn't doing that to your children, all right, then I would not be doing that. I wouldn't put my children in Christian youth groups, all right? One of my sister-in-laws put her daughter in an Adventist elementary school and then got frustrated when her daughter started sounding Adventist. I said, what do you think was going to happen? That's what they're teaching her there. Of course, you know? All right, over here, who's next?
Hi, Rabbi.
Hi, Taylor.
This question is, I'm kind of scared to ask it because it's like really, you know, Christian kind of based off, okay. So when you were talking about fellowship and how we're supposed to like get to know each other because we're going to be in a forever community and all that stuff, I always thought, and I've already watched the Millennium and the Kingdom and all that, but I don't remember if it was in there. I was wondering, like, why is it important? I know it's important to talk to people and get to know them and stuff, but I always thought that when Yeshua came back, there would be, however far we came to try to be like him perfect, we were going to be perfected. And so I'm trying to understand, like, obviously with like perfection, I'm thinking like we would already, you know.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, So, and by the way, for those of you that want this job at some point, part of the skill set you have to develop is trying to understand what someone's asking, what they're saying, and even though they're not saying everything the way they want to, you have to be able to figure that out. It takes time to develop that. Just letting you know, that's part of the challenge. Okay, so the things that you're talking about are more the weak spots in your system and the halakha. Okay, so it's not the personality stuff. It's not the relational stuff that way that's going to get all of a sudden changed in you. So he wants us to become people that he wants to spend forever with, and that has to do with our working this out and spending time together. That's why he puts us in congregations. That's why he puts us in communities. That's why we do the feast where we all can come together. We have to learn how to be that type of person. The thing that, when you're talking about in terms of the millennium, your struggle against sin will have finally reached victory. And that's the actions and the mechanics of it more, okay? As opposed to the interrelational, how you spend time or not time or show interest in other people, that kind of thing. Now, I think from the millennium point of view, the handicaps will disappear. What I mean by the handicaps is I've got a handicap by having none of that part of the personality that does that social stuff easily. I think that will get fixed. All of us introverts, I'm not, but if you're introverted, all of us socially challenged, all of us who like to isolate, all those things I think will get healed so that we will feel much more comfortable interacting with each other. You'll still be you though, okay? So if the problem is actually a handicapping that's in you, that I think will be healed. If it's just something you have to learn to develop, I think we're supposed to do that now. And you may need to do that in the millennium if you didn't do that now before you get translated into the perfection, because you have to learn this. He's not going to give it to you. That's why we do it this way. So otherwise he would be a respecter of persons, and it wouldn't be fair for us to have to learn it and nobody else, other people not have to learn it. We have to learn how to do this, okay? That's why there's so many things like in the letters we just read talking about how we have to learn how to treat each other. Does that answer the question?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In relation to the personalities, I'm in the color where you explain the color code.
Right.
In relation to that, understanding the person in front of us and how we should respond or if we should respond, and our decisions as far as like breaking Torah and kind of molding those two or like putting them together, I guess, as far as you obey him, but at the same time, loving each other includes understanding how to respond to the person in front of you.
I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure how it connects to the Torah part, but I mean, the understanding of loving each other, which I guess is the Torah issue, means that you have to recognize that each person, the reason we did the personality test, and if you're watching online, we did this thing called the color code test. It's a very simple personality test using 4 colors, red, white, yellow, and blue. But the purpose of it, when I first did it, was called understanding yourself better so you can understand the other person better, other people better. And recognizing that they have weaknesses and strengths. And so we don't tend to have a problem mostly with people's strengths, we have a problem with their weaknesses. And if the person in front of you is white or yellow or red or blue, you should understand that you are likely going to run into certain challenges with them because of the weaknesses that are in that personality, and not get upset about it, but recognize that that's who they are and that they struggle with that weakness. Now, that doesn't mean that you just accept it and that they just accept and say, well, it's too bad, it's who I am. No, you recognize that that's a weakness you need to work on. It's good when he allows us to go through things that show us our weaknesses so that we can work on them. But you still have to deal then with the person in front of you, knowing that they have a particular weakness, okay? So if the person in front of you is very blue, for example, you may need to realize that they want things done a very specific way, because otherwise it's wrong. That's their personality. And so you can't just do it any way you want and think they're going to be okay with it. Even though what you do may work, it's not going to work for them. Or you have someone with a white personality and you're expecting something on time on a deadline, you could forget it, not happening, okay? But you should know that going into it and work and adjust to that kind of thing. Or the yellow personality, look, you want them to do something that's drudgery and not fun, there's no way it's happening, okay? There's no fun in it, they're not doing it. Okay, and by the way, all you yellows out there, or all you people out there that don't have a lot of yellow in your personality, it doesn't mean you're not fun. Yellow people aren't necessarily fun. Yellow people want to be involved in fun. They don't want to do it if it's not fun, okay? So don't think that just because you have not a whole lot of yellow, it just means that fun is not a priority for you. It doesn't mean that you're not fun, okay? Okay, so, and I left out red. So the red thing, so if you're dealing with a red person, you got to know. They could be caustic, they could be sharp, they could be blunt, and if it happens, don't be surprised. It doesn't mean, well, it's too bad, just got to take it, but it's like they have to work on them, but you have to adjust to the person in front of you. So as I get to know you, I would learn things in your personality, and I would learn how to adjust to that. Husbands and wives have a brutal time with this. That's why I make people, before they get married, take the test. So you know what you're getting before you get married. It's a lot easier if we have diagnosed things like you know that the person that you're marrying is autistic or has a physical handicap or something that's diagnosed, and then you say, okay, I have to adjust to that. But personalities are handicaps, okay? There are things that you struggle to do because of your personality, and it's a struggle for your interpersonal relationships. And so, yes, you have to deal with the person in front of you, and that's part of the halakha of figuring out how to love each other. Okay?
I promise. It's the rest of it's with this.
Okay.
So I needed to make sure I was understanding that right for the second part of the question. I'm a yellow. Thanks for mentioning that. I do like things to be fun. And so learning this and trying to like study and read that, are you up for the challenge, and getting to know the person in front of me, this work, oh my gosh. James 4:4, he talks about it. There's like a trend. Wait, hold on. Oh, it talks about the intention, having your intent. Like your intent is there, right? So you're working at it. But then, is that the same where it says like in 2 Peter 1:5-7, where you're obedient to it first? Remember, he talked about the obedience came, and then he gave you the desire, and then loving each other or whatever.
Yes.
Is that the same?
Yeah, that would work.
Okay.
Okay, that'll work.
And then James 5:12.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my Bible up here, but is that for like indecisiveness, where it says yes, yes, and no, no?
No, it's just more about, don't say you're going to do something unless you're going to do it. Just, keep your mouth shut otherwise. There's no reason to say something unless you're going to stand by it.
Okay.
And that causes a problem in relationships. Look, especially, you're dealing with some blues, and you tell them you're going to do something and don't do it, you're done. I mean, okay? Okay, and so, or if you say you're not going to do it and then you went and did it anyway, it's better just to not say anything. If you say it, do it. All right? I like to talk about, I'm a goal type guy. I like to put things out there that I want to do someday. That drives my wife insane because I don't do any of those things most of the time. It takes me forever. And she's like, why do you keep telling everybody you're going to have this class and then you don't do it?
I agree.
I want to do it.
I agree.
You've been talking about it for 10 years. I know. I know it. All right. Go ahead.
Verse 13 and 14. Man, did I pick the right verse? 13. Where is that like not? What does 13 and 14 say? I'm sorry, I didn't bring my Bible.
Is any of you suffering evil? Let him pray. Is anyone got good spirits? Let him sing psalms. Anyone sick? Come to the elders.
Okay, yes. So I had an experience when I was counseling with Billy, where I could tell that I just wasn't receiving it. I understood what he said. 1 + 1 is 2. But I was like, I hear you, but it's not connecting. It's not clicking. And I told him, I was like, I feel like I'm broken in that sense because I understand, like logically, the red of me is like, yes. But something in me was like, no. And I didn't feel like it was a disobedient thing, but is that something that, I know you said it's not necessarily a physical ailment all the time.
No, but in this case, it's not something that necessarily can get healed just by prayer. It's something that we have to then, more through counsel, figure out what is the emotional blockage. There's something in you that's not receiving it, and we got to figure out why. And the why has to do with a desire or something in you that's not congruent with the 1 + 1 = 2. Okay, even though it's rational, logical, and you get it, but you don't want to accept it, and there's an emotional reason for that. And we just have to dig under and figure it out.
Okay. And then in 1 John 1:5-8, I feel like that debunks everything that I knew if I were talking to my Christian self. But I'm on a mission not to become lifeless and dull in this process where you kind of, I found myself waking up at the Christian church and like something's missing, something's wrong. You just feel bleh. Mm-hmm. In that process is when he talks about people, what we call backsliding. And like in Romans, he talks about he'll give them over to a debased mind. These are people who, because I can't imagine myself going back and saying, no, that's the truth when you already have accepted this. Is that, similar, I guess? Does that make sense? With him, are those people going backwards and just saying, no, I know the truth, but I'm doing it? And I'm asking this because I want to identify in myself if I start to become numb.
All right. No, I guess I would use the way of saying it that if we're looking at it as backsliding, in the verse it says he gives them over to a debased mind, that kind of thing. it's just like when he threw them out and said, fine, you want to do things in paganism, go be in paganism. It's not like a permanent thing. It's meant to wake you up and make you realize that you went back to your vomit and it's not food, it's vomit. Okay? That's the whole point is to give you over and say, fine, have at it. Learn your lesson, come back when you're ready. Okay? So it's not like he gave them over and said, you're done, and now I've just changed your brain to be a debased brain. He's saying, no, I'm going to let you yield to the debased thought processes. I'm not going to push you anymore. I'm going to let you go do it, and then hopefully you don't suffer too much and you wake up and you come back and go, I'm sorry, I get it now. Okay?
Okay. And then, sorry, I have a couple. James 4:9, where he says, like for my example, my notes. So I slowly did a process before he popped my bubble to where it was that slow turning your joy to dejection. Being here now, if he uncovers something, is it like a ripping off of the Band-Aid, or is it okay to take that process like you were talking to the people who
It could be either
moving
one.
here?
It could be either one. It depends on the personality and how you feel and what the situation is. It could be a Band-Aid thing. But look, the lament and mourn and weep could even be you guys who are losing family members over this. And I've had some counselings about that lately. You know, that you're upset because family members, and you can't have it both ways. You know, you have to make your choices, and they're going to make their choices. And so in your case, some of these things, you know, as they come up, you'll have to go through the process here of, you know, lamenting and mourning, weeping, and humbling yourself. And other things, it's more like just tearing off the Band-Aid and going, ow, that hurt. Okay, I get it. I'll move on. It's situational.
Okay. Last one, promise. Not a question, though, it's a comment. I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate watching you receive from the Father. And like you had 2 moments, maybe 3 today, where you received something and you recognized it. I thought it was humble of you to mention that. And then it gives me the blue fuzzies to see it happen live and in person.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Look, there are things, actually most of what I'm saying comes directly that way. You just can't tell because I'm not saying it. Because my notes just said read James chapter 4 and James chapter 5. So I allow for that. But as I prepare, and I do read through the chapters preparing, I purposely was not going to talk about certain things. And then when it came up anyway, after I decided that I was skipping it, he then gave me an answer anyway. And that's when I tell you, well, I guess he wanted me to say something. And so, but he didn't give it to me then when I was first looking at it, but I left it in there anyway. And then we end up covering it. So I appreciate that, and I pointed out for you because I want you to understand that that is what's happening. So it wasn't to impress anybody or anything. I was like, okay, I guess, look, he just showed me something I want to share with you. Because it's new, I want to tell you I'm excited about it because I'm just seeing it. And so when I see something for the first time, I'm like, well, okay, and also to tell you I've never said it before, because if it's a new thing that he's downloading to me, I know I never said it before too, so that you can make note of it. Like what we did about, you know, the anointing that's on the person who's you came to ask prayer of, as opposed to them anointing you. That was a thought that just came as I was reading it. Okay, so these things happen on a regular basis. All right, so that being said, Kurt, do you have anything urgent, anything on there? We're good? Okay, we went a little longer. See, when I go shorter and are on time, then the kids aren't here, and otherwise the kids get here and then they end up waiting. So everybody's in, we're good?